He built no factories. He drilled no oil wells. He forged no steel with his own hands. Yet when the financial system of the most powerful nation on earth began to collapse, governments hesitated, markets froze, and industries stopped moving. And the world waited. Not for a president, not for Congress, not for the courts. It waited for John Pierpont Morgan. This is the story of how one man came to control the American economy without ever holding office, and why the system he shaped still governs us today. Morgan did not grow up believing markets were fair or free. He grew up believing they were fragile, and that fragile systems require oversight. Chaos was not creative to him, it was irresponsible. Why Morgan feared competition? American capitalism celebrates competition as a moral good. Morgan rejected this idea entirely. To him, competition was wasteful. It created price wars, overexpansion, duplication of infrastructure, and ultimately collapse. When too many firms chased the same opportunity, margins evaporated, debt rose, and confidence disappeared. Morgan's view was not ideological, it was practical. Markets without coordination didn't self-correct, they self-destructed. And when they did, ordinary people paid the price. Morgan believed that stability, even if achieved through consolidation, was preferable to freedom that ended in collapse. Failure as an opportunity for control. By the late 1800s, the American economy was expanding faster than it could sustain itself. Railroads crisscrossed the nation with no unified planning. Banks extended credit recklessly. Speculation outpaced reality. The result was inevitable. Failures cascaded. Companies collapsed. Railroads defaulted. Investors panicked. This is where Morgan emerged. He did not rescue failing companies out of compassion. He reorganized them to eliminate chaos. When a railroad failed, Morgan stepped in, replaced leadership, merged competitors, cut redundant routes, and stabilized pricing. He didn't ask how to save competition, he asked how to eliminate instability. One by one, industries stopped behaving like open battlegrounds and started functioning like managed systems. The birth of financial architecture. Morgan's true genius was not deal-making, it was architecture. He understood that power didn't come from owning every asset, it came from controlling the relationships between them. By sitting at the center of capital flows, Morgan became indispensable. If companies wanted credit, they came to him. If industries wanted stability, they deferred to him. If investors wanted confidence, they trusted his judgment. Morgan didn't run companies day to day. He decided who was allowed to survive. U.S. Steel, when capital became infrastructure. In 1901, Morgan executed what was then the largest corporate merger in history, the creation of U.S. Steel. It was the first billion-dollar corporation ever formed. By merging multiple steel producers, Morgan didn't just consolidate ownership, he centralized control. Steel prices stabilized, production was regulated, supply chains became predictable. This was not innovation, it was coordination on an unprecedented scale. Steel was no longer an industry reacting to demand. It became an infrastructure that dictated the pace of American growth. Morgan had turned chaos into command. Power without office, influence without visibility. John Pierpont Morgan never ran for office, he never campaigned, he never faced voters, he never answered publicly for his decisions. Yet presidents consulted him. Treasury officials deferred to him. Entire industries depended on his approval. This was power without accountability. Morgan operated privately, through agreements enforced by necessity rather than law. His authority came from the fact that when markets panicked, he was the only one capable of restoring confidence. That kind of power does not appear on ballots. It appears when institutions fail. The panic of 1907, when one man became the system. In 1907, the American financial system faced total collapse. Banks failed, credit froze, stock prices plummeted, the economy teetered on the edge. The federal government lacked the tools and the confidence to intervene. There was no central bank, no emergency framework, no coordinated response. So the system turned to Morgan. At 70 years old, Morgan summoned the most powerful bankers in America to his library. He locked the doors, he forced agreements, he dictated which institutions would be saved and which would be sacrificed. Not democratically, not transparently, but decisively. Within days, confidence returned. The panic ended. Not because the system worked, but because Morgan did. The terrifying realization. The panic of 1907 terrified policymakers. not because the economy almost collapsed, but because of how it was saved. One private citizen had stabilized the entire nation. That meant the system was broken. If America required a Morgan to survive, it meant the state had abdicated its responsibility. Morgan himself became proof that private power had outgrown public authority. Death and the institutionalization of his logic. John Pierpont Morgan died on March 31, 1913, in Rome, Italy. He left behind no inventions, no political dynasty, no public philosophy. He left behind structures. Within months of his death, the Federal Reserve was created, explicitly to ensure that no single private individual would ever again be required to save the economy. Ironically, the Federal Reserve adopted Morgan's worldview. Centralized control, stability over competition, systemic risk management. Morgan did not disappear, he was absorbed into the state. The birth of too big to fail. Perhaps Morgan's most enduring legacy is an idea we now take for granted, that some institutions are too important to be allowed to fail. This concept didn't originate in government policy, it originated in Morgan's decisions. He saved companies not because they deserved it, but because their collapse would destabilize everything else. This logic now defines modern capitalism. Banks are rescued, markets are stabilized, losses are socialized, the system survives, even when individuals suffer. The moral cost of stability. Morgan believed stability justified consolidation, but stability has a cost. Competition shrinks, innovation slows, power concentrates. Morgan's system protected capital more reliably than people. It prevented collapse, but it also entrenched inequality. The question was never whether Morgan was effective. The question was who benefited, why Morgan still matters. John Pierpont Morgan didn't invent capitalism. He engineered its modern form. A system where markets are managed, not free, where crises are contained, not allowed to burn, where power flows through institutions too complex to challenge. Every bailout, every emergency intervention, every central bank decision, all echo Morgan's logic. The question that refuses to go away. Morgan proved that power does not require ownership, visibility, or public approval. It requires control over systems. And that raises the question we still haven't answered. If the system exists to prevent collapse, who does it exist to protect? John Pierpont Morgan built a world where markets no longer fall freely, but he also built one where power operates quietly, privately, and without consent. The system survived him. The question is whether it ever stopped being his.